Hello and welcome to DIY Therapy. As always, we'll start with our disclaimers. This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. My name is Will. With me as always is Andy.
Good morning, Will.
Wow, what was that? Did you forget who I was?
No, I was going to say the whole Good Morning Vietnam thing, and I don't know why I was going to say that. And I'm like, well, should I really say Vietnam on a... I don't know. Maybe we should cut this out already.
Yeah, I am.
Should we start over?
I'm totally going to edit this out.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. I mean, the better question is how many people would actually know...
Don't say Vietnam.
No.
Oh.
That movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because ironically, when we were walking into school this morning, one of the teachers is like, "I know nothing from I think it's Hogan's Heroes." Is that?
Oh, see, I wouldn't know that reference.
Yeah, so you're not that much younger than me.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't. I don't even know what Hogan's Heroes is.
You want to talk about the plot of the movie.
Oh, it's a movie? I thought it was a TV show.
I mean, movie. It's a show.
Okay.
The plot of the show is so bizarre. You'd like that because it's about Nazis. They're holding these American soldiers prisoner, but they're not really prisoners. I mean, they are prisoners, but they're like intelligent officers, and so they break out all the time and do and you'd be like, what is this?
What is going on?
And they're playing the Nazis as jokes and. Like the head Nazi guy is actually played by an actor who's actually Jewish, and he's always like, if he's played up as like smarter and competent, I'm out. And so his that's why his one of his I think it was like one of his like not generals, but one of the second in command is like, I know nothing. They'd ask him and like, why isn't this person here? And then because they're always constantly breaking out.
Speaking of Nazis, do you have any interest in that Jojo Rabbit movie?
Oh, is that the one with Taika Waititi?
Yeah, and he's playing Hitler.
Yes.
And he is actually
Jewish. Yes.
I think half Jewish, but
yeah, he's like Maori Jewish. Or something
I'm not sure, but it seems. I
it was
actually
bonkers.
Well, he's a nut.
Yes.
And so I'm half interested. I mean, obviously it's a satire, but I'm very interested to see what that show is about.
Yeah, that might be one of those things where it'd be a good rent. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't think I'll see it in the.
I don't necessarily
theater.
need to see it in the theaters, but it's a good rent. It's a bizarre concept.
Yeah. Okay, on track here.
Wow.
What are we? 5 minutes in, and we haven't talked about anything.
No, we're only 3. It's fine.
Okay. All right. Good.
We're talking about general elbow pain.
General elbow pain.
So that's going to be like golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, which we did specific ones on. Mm-hmm. Kind of like hyperextended elbow, which I did to myself. Mm-hmm. I've done that to myself a couple of times.
Yep.
Elbow bursitis,
bicep tendinitis. Yeah.
Kind of like all of them. Kind of like what is a good if you're as a layperson, you don't know specifically which one you have. How would you go about treating yourself at home with it?
Yeah, and then maybe even like a cubital tunnel type syndrome. Which, if you're familiar with like carpal tunnel, that's where there's like a nerve compression at the wrist. Well, this cubital tunnel is actually like nerve compression at the elbow.
Yeah, so. When you're funny bone, it's there. Mm-hmm. It's because when you're hitting your funny bone, it's obviously not bone; it's your nerve. That's why it feels the way it does. And so, basically, the stuff there gets too tight and it kind of strangles the nerve, so to speak.
Yeah. So when we start talking about I guess we can kind of lump these into a couple different categories. Bicep tendinitis, and like a bursitis. There's a bursitis that sits at the back end of the.
So what is a bursitis?
Bursitis is a sac of fluid that helps to provide lubrication in between a tendon and a bone.
So it's a sac that does lubrication.
Yes, where the bone and tendon slide. Well, the tendon slides over the bone so that the tendon doesn't become irritated.
Do I need to make this an explicit podcast?
What did I say?
I mean, there's a lot of words there that sounded.
Hey, listen. If you have to get your head out of the gutter, that's fine with me. these people are here for educational purposes only.
That's a good point.
Okay? Not entertainment.
No,
because we don't provide
we
any
are
of
not
that.
entertaining.
Not even to ourselves.
No.
Oh, it's such a sad life we live. Yeah, so when we start talking about those types of dysfunctions, though, it's a lot of rest, ice, tendinitis, bursitis really respond well to ice, and avoidance of whatever activities that really agitate
Yes.
it. Yeah. If we're looking more at like a cubital tunnel syndrome, okay, that a lot of times is where we actually want to avoid probably bending the elbow, because as we bend the elbow, it actually creates more strain and stress across that nerve at the cubital at the site of
all the structures that are choking it off become tighter.
Yeah, with the elbow bent, and so with the arm. So a lot of people actually will have this issue if they either sleep with their arms bent, or if they're like I treated a gal one time that, she was an absolute workaholic, sweet lady, very nice, but she was an absolute workaholic, and she would lose track of time and work at a standing desk for about 6 straight hours.
Oh, goodness.
And with the way that she had her arms positioned was she had her arms probably bent way past 90 degrees to where her elbows and her wrists were really close almost to like her biceps. And so her elbows were extremely bent, and she was like, I just don't understand. Both my elbows really started hurting right when I took this job and kind of took on these new responsibilities. And, I even have a standing desk, and, it doesn't seem to be coming from the neck. And it was all because she just wasn't straightening out her elbows enough, because it was just getting choked off. So some of it is positioning, but again, avoidance. Okay. So when it's really agitated, trying to get into avoidance. Hyperextension would be obviously trying to avoid.
Well, in the beginning part of it, it's you literally you can't, like, for when it happened to me. The first time it happened to me was like I didn't warm up, and I was in a gym, and like, hey, there's a basketball, so I immediately, as opposed to like just shooting a few short shots, I immediately went to the 3-point and
started chucking it up.
Yeah, and at the time it was like you can feel it. The next day, the next morning, like my elbow was like I could not straighten my elbow. Mm-hmm. So with that kind of thing, you just literally ice the crap out of it and just try to let it, everything kind of calm down, so you can kind of like
and avoid extension.
Yes, yeah. You don't want to, even though you kind of want to force it, but you don't. You just want to let it kind of like everything calm down, and then just once you kind of start gaining it, then you can kind of start stretching it out a bit. But you want to wait till everything kind of calms down before you start really forcing anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lateral epicondylitis, which is also known as tennis elbow, and then medial epicondylitis, which is known as golfer's elbow. Those are also more like tendon issues, muscle issues, overuse, repetitive stress. So again, whatever it is that you're typically doing, people who again are typing tend to have a lot of lateral epicondylitis or tennis elbow issues because it's working the common extensor muscles in the elbow and the wrist. So position your keyboard, making sure that your wrists aren't extended a lot. Those are all things that you can avoid and try to modify with those types of things.
Yeah, sometimes even just throughout the day, like moving your keyboard closer or farther away from you. Mm-hmm. Just small changes like that will help.
Yeah, so, like everything that we've always talked about, a lot of this stuff is avoidance early on. In fact, you can actually do like a compression brace or something like that to help kind of help
the swelling,
which
reduces the pain,
and just compression in general can help just kind of give your body a new sensation, which is a positive input to the nervous system, which allows your nervous system to actually decrease its sensitivity, which is something that's both proven and that we've had through research and that we've had extensive experience.
And honestly, you probably have done it too. Like you've slammed your thumb in a door. Mm-hmm. And what's the first thing you do? You suck on that thumb.
Or you squeeze it, or you shake it out. You provide some kind of positive input to it.
It feels a little bit better. Your thumb's not fixed, but it feels better, and that's why.
Yeah. You're just overloading the nervous system with different input that's neutral, and neutral input when there's pain present actually is determined to be positive input, and therefore it reduces that sensitivity. So compression, those types of things are actually something that can help reduce, especially if you're having some chronic issues, reduce some of those symptoms, which is where we come into kind of a little shameless plug at this point.
Yep.
We do offer DIY Therapy is actually offering, we're kind of expanding out some of our product lines.
As opposed to like most podcasts doing like a t-shirt merch, we're doing merch that is geared towards helping you.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the key here, right? So, some people don't need this. So if you're having elbow pain, don't worry about it.
No.
And if you're treating yourself and you're not having any issues, don't worry about it. This isn't this is about giving you guys options in regards to, okay, I've tried some of this stuff. I'm getting, 25% better, and I'm kind of hitting a wall. Well, maybe this stuff can help facilitate a little bit more healing so that you can get to where you need to be. Most of the products that we actually have in our store on our website, they are merely adjunct treatments. They're not the end all be all. And I always want to.
They will not. Yeah, they will. None of these ones will fix you.
Yeah, all by yourself. You still need.
Actually, the inverter belt that actually will help.
Yeah, but you still got to do the exercise.
Yes.
Yeah. So none of this is just like a quick fix.
No, none of them. Yeah.
But that's the way the body works in general. If you're having chronic issues that aren't clearing up within a 3 to 4 week period, then most of the time you got to work at it a little bit.
Yes.
So, our DIY brace, elbow brace, can actually help just kind of provide that compression, help with a little bit of inflammation, and then also provide that positive input. Obviously, from an icing standpoint, we'd like you to ice pretty much all these dysfunctions.
Yes.
When we start talking about kind of taking care of all of these things, as long as your pain isn't terribly out of control, you can kind of go through the pain management phase and then slowly start to introduce some general stretches, general range of motion. The first thing that I like to have people do a lot of times is just go through kind of wrist flexion extension, so bending the wrist up and down. You can do this for 30, 60 seconds. You can move on to things like pronation, supination. So
that's taking your hand and your forearm and rotating it. So like where your palm is up, then you flip it so your palm is down, just kind of doing that.
Yeah, the back and forth again, maybe 30, 60, 90 seconds, that type of thing. And then you can get into maybe a little bit of wrist flexion and extension stretching. This would be really good for like your tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. And that's where you're going to keep the elbow nice and straight. And then you're going to actually bend the wrist down one direction or the other based upon which side of the...
Yeah, so it's almost like instead of like going up and down, it's like you're doing... Imagine your hands out like you're doing a karate chop and you're pulling it up towards the ceiling and pulling it down towards the floor.
That's ulnar and radial deviation.
Oh, that's right, yeah. I'm thinking of... I was ahead.
Disregard the last.
I was ahead. I wasn't paying attention as much as this. Well, I wasn't paying attention. Shocking.
What were you thinking about? I'm just curious.
The cat sitting on my foot.
Oh.
I can't feel it on my foot anymore.
That's because your cat weighs 30 pounds.
He might weigh 35. It's hard to know.
How big is it for real?
I don't know. It's huge.
Yeah. It's big. Anyways, more of a stretch versus an active range of motion. So you're getting maybe 25, 30-second holds versus just moving it through the range of motion.
Right.
Okay. You could also do a bicep stretch where you take your hand on like the forearm or your palm on the door frame, and you kind of you keep the elbow straight and you kind of turn your body away, so you get a stretch across the front of your chest and down the back of your or the front of your shoulder, arm.
Yeah, because your bicep actually attaches up
to the
past,
shoulder.
Yeah.
So that's another stretch that you can incorporate for a bicep stretch. And then, of course, there are a couple of isometric exercises that you can start to do, and strengthening exercises with the wrist, with the elbow, where you're starting to actually get some strengthening moving. You can do just active range of motion with the elbow, where you're just moving it through the motion without any strength, and then eventually start putting like a soup can in there and kind of bending up and down. That would be good for any of your tendinitis dysfunctions that we talked about. It could be great for eventually introducing some strength into extension. If you hyperextended your elbow, that's also obviously an option. And I don't know what else. What else do you usually work on for you?
I mean, it's the elbows. It's
fairly straightforward.
Yeah, the trickiest part about it all is the avoidance part of it.
Yeah.
because it's such a commonly used joint.
Yeah.
Like it's even easier to avoid for the shoulder because usually that seems to be more like overhead or something.
Or 90 degrees or above.
Yeah, it's usually where that's where it starts getting dicey. But it's the elbow is where it's
all out in front of you.
Because
which is where we spend our life.
You cannot not use your elbow.
Yeah, so it's a lot of the avoidance.
Yeah, and that's why the brace would help a bit because it keeps everything kind of like compressed and like it reduces the swelling, because the swelling, if you can control swelling, that's going to help control a lot of your symptoms.
Brace is really good for warmth too. If you're a runner, things like that, especially as the weather starts changing here. Running can sometimes actually aggravate.
Yeah, where we are, it's starting to become fall.
Yes.
Autumn,
if you will.
I am Will.
Terrible.
Nailed it.
Absolutely getting a 1-star rating on this one.
Oh no, we're not even getting a star rating.
I don't think there's an option, is there?
You can just not rate it, and that would be not rating it.
Yeah, but that doesn't hurt us.
No, you're right.
Anyways, moving on. That's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? We've actually created a little bit of a document that you can find on our website at www.diytherapy.net that you can look on for general treatments. So you can check that out. We've also, obviously, we can do some consultations to kind of help work you through your specific and unique problems and patterns. So that's available also.
Yeah, because we always talk about this, but sometimes it's hard to know what the avoidance is.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like your lady with the desk.
She had no idea.
No idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's something simple. It's just like you're so caught up and you're like, I'm not doing anything new or different.
Yeah, and Will and I have a combined about 25 years of actual therapy, so we've seen it, we've heard it, all in orthopedics. So we've seen it and we've heard it, and we're really good at identifying, what it is that's really triggering the pain. So sometimes a quick 30-minute conversation can really just kind of help open
the door for you
to know what to look for and what to avoid. Yeah, that's about it. Anything else going on exciting with you?
No. The kids have school off again for I don't know. Well, they have 2 days off for parent-teacher conferences, and then they're another 2 days after that.
Yeah.
So they have Thursday, Friday off, and then the following Monday and Tuesday. And I don't know why. My wife keeps calling it a fall break. I don't know what that means.
We're a month in to school.
Literally.
Yeah. Yeah. Watching anything fun?
No, but all the shows are starting to come back. Side note, we were off the air, we were talking about you're continuing with your wife down her introduction into the Marvel Universe.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the CW has their little DC universe that
I was going to say, it's like Batwoman and Arrow.
Well, yeah, they're adding Batwoman, but it started off as Arrow and Flash, and then they had these wacky ones called Legends of Tomorrow, which are, time traveling. That one's more just a comedy.
Okay.
But they started doing these crossover events. And they're doing one where it's an actual big comic book where it's like Crisis on Infinite Earth. So the thought process at the time was when they did this in the comic books, they had, Superman on this planet and then this other character on this other planet and this other one, all these different universes. And they wanted to be able to smoosh them all together. That way they could tell stories where they're together. Right. So they had this big event where, all the multiverse got destroyed and everybody's on the same planet. Right. They're kind of doing this. Right.
Is it good?
No, they're going to do this.
Okay.
Right, this season. The funny part is they're bringing in. So Brandon Routh played Superman in
the
Superman Returns.
I don't know. Kevin Spacey won,
and he actually plays a hero on The Legends of Tomorrow, and he was on Flash, Flash, where he's Adam, right? He's actually playing. He's putting on the Superman outfit. For this, he's being Superman in a version of it. They're bringing in Smallville characters. They're bringing in so many people from just other weird DC shows. There is if you've ever played the Arkham games on Batman, I know you haven't, but or even seen the Batman cartoon from the 90s, Batman animated series. There's a guy, Kevin Conroy, who voiced Batman, and he's been doing it for I don't know how many years.
Are they going to bring in Mark
Hamill?
Hamill?
They're bringing him in, but not as a voice, but they're bringing him in as old Batman. It is insane.
So are you excited about this?
Yes, because it is a bonkers.
Well, the thing about DC is that nothing about, like, I can sit and watch a DC movie and enjoy it as a standalone film, but I don't know if I really want to think of them all being as linked because they've done such a bad job of linking them all.
They've done a better job with this.
Honestly, well, and they may have
because they've had more time.
Yeah, they may have. Everything else was rushed.
The movies they just went.
But yeah, Justice League, Batman versus Superman,
everybody in the tub.
Yeah.
With this one, they started off with just Arrow, and then they introduced the Flash, and they kind of just like organically kind of spread out from there, and then they just kind of like spread out from there, and then they didn't even do the crossovers like till I don't know. The 5th season of Arrow or 4th season of Arrow or something like that.
Well, and that kind of comes back to the original thing that you made me. Why we're talking about this was because we were talking about Marvel and my wife. For those of you that don't know, I've got my wife hooked on the Marvel movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I very much and they've done such a good job of laying out these movies and telling a continuous story. My wife last night was so disappointed that she only has like 4 more movies that she can watch. I mean, she's like shattered by it. She's like, "Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do?" And so I'm debating whether or not to actually introduce her to the DC universe, and I don't know if it's a good call or not. And they're not nearly as funny,
No, they're not as much fun. They're dour.
Yeah, it's very dark. So I don't know. She's like, well, maybe I'll enjoy it, maybe I won't. I'm like, maybe not. I don't know. So
yeah, I think I sent it to you. Did you watch there's a YouTube channel where it's the pitch
the pitch meeting,
the pitch meetings.
Oh,
where they did like Batman versus Superman, and the guy was going through the Lex Luthor's plan.
Those, by the way.
Yes, they're funny. If you haven't, they're like 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, some of them are shorter.
They're usually pretty funny. And in a 5-minute video where the guy is pitching this to the producer, of the 5 minutes, 3 of that is dedicated to the plan of Lex Luthor trying to orchestrate Batman and Superman fighting.
Well, and they're so funny because they basically just poke holes in everything, and just mock it, and how we all just kind of suspend disbelief during a movie and just kind of accept that.
Yeah, it's like
all these outrageous circumstances just to come together. And
it's like it's like,
and that's a lot. That's movies.
As long as the story is good and compelling and enjoyable, your brain will just ignore it. But when it's bad, then you start paying attention to it.
Yeah,
it's like that.
Well, and there's a reason why they don't do movies like on Our Lives, because those things aren't interesting.
They're not exciting.
Yeah, so you got to make some stuff up. All right, let's tie this up.
This podcast was for educational purposes only. You're gonna have to go to the bathroom drinking that giant gulp. It is not designed to diagnose or treat. When beginning any exercise program, it should be reviewed and discussed with your medical professional prior to beginning. Information on this podcast is not designed to replace medical treatment. Remember, treat yourself.